everyone. Thanks so much for coming out on such a cold and rainy night. I promise you are in for a treat. It is my honor to introduce Dr. Maureen Vandermaas-Peeler, recipient of Elon University's 2018 Distinguished Scholar Award. It is indeed difficult to summarize all of her accomplishments and areas of study. So I thought I'd start off with the short answer to the essay test question, which will be administered after the talk. So students, get ready to write. What is the single most common and salient feature of Maureen's research? Context. Context matters. And I will discuss three broad contexts that she has examined over the course of her career. Context is everything to Maureen. As a psychologist who studies developing organisms within a wide variety of naturally occurring settings, which makes her accomplishments all the more remarkable. First, Maureen studies children and their parents in real-world situations, outside of the artificial environment of the lab. I call this her IPG, Importance of Parental Guidance Research. She works within genuine and often complicated milieu of family life. It is one thing to study how parents and children play a game together in a quiet room, away from distractions. It's another to capture the rich learning that occurs when played in the family room, and the older brother wants to join in, and the cat bats away pieces of the board game. That happened to me. Due to the time-intensive nature of this kind of research, it can take several years to simply collect and analyze data. Commenting on Maureen's research, a nationally recognized scholar noted, "Many researchers have shied away from such labor-intense studies, but at the same time, they recognize the vitally important information they offer about children's cognitive and social development within everyday learning environments." Notwithstanding these challenges, Maureen has been very productive. She has over 35 peer-reviewed publications and 75 peer-reviewed presentations with collaborations extending across the globe. Maureen has studied children's learning in informal contexts, beginning with parental guidance of tasks such as cooking, play, and reading. And in 2008, she was invited to contribute a chapter to the book Contemporary Perspectives on Mathematics in Early Childhood Education. This request launched a new line of inquiry: numeracy development and parental guidance. She practically invented the field and found that parents are a powerful vehicle for teaching their young children about numbers. In fact, one scholar noted that Maureen's seminal research was one of the few studies that describes actual mathematical events occurring in the homes of young children and their parents. For all those future or current parents, teachers, and grandparents in the audience, take note of this next finding. Maureen found that the simple intervention of training parents in inquiry-based guidance yielded significantly improved math scores and more complex reasoning among young children. Questions such as, "What do you notice?" and "I wonder what will happen next," are an invitation to further exploration, hypothesis testing, and conversation. Her more recent research has extended beyond the confines of an indoor setting to include the natural environment. I like to call this the go outside and play and don't come back in until I call you research. Her rich and descriptive findings indicate that the natural world offers children many opportunities to learn about math and science and problem solving and relationships, as well as develop a deep appreciation for the importance of conservation. This research has also included diverse cultures and global contexts, including US, Danish, and Guatemalan parents' perceptions of risk and nature play. In an era of overscheduled children with overprotective parents, Maureen's research underscores the importance of allowing children to climb trees, jump off rocks, get messy, and play with sticks. The third and final context I call the go away and open yourself to new people's culture, religion, food, music, and art. Similar to the go outside and play research, but with college students and the broader canvas of global engagement. As the director and only employee of the Center for Research on Global Engagement, she is an internationally renowned scholar in this area of student learning. Her most recent work focuses on mentoring undergraduate research in international contexts. Maureen's prolific research has addressed important gaps within the academic literature. It also serves as a call to action and advocacy. Her research underscores the importance of high-quality early childhood education, of parent education, of the need for unstructured time spent in nature with the opportunity to climb, jump, fall, and explore, of the importance of access to global education opportunities for all students. In short, her research matters and highlights the importance of context. We are so very lucky to have her at Elon. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Vandermaas-Peeler, or as many of her undergraduate students call her, MVP, Most Valuable Professor.
Thank you for coming. I think we're done. Thank you, Cindy. That's very kind. I am delighted to be here. Thank you for coming out, as Cindy said, in this terrible weather, and I'm really humbled to share some of my work with you tonight. We're going to start at Children First in the Garden, and before we do, I have to recognize a celebrity, in my world anyway. Donna King is here. She's the lead teacher at, wave, Donna, Children First, and you're going to meet her and the wonderful things she's doing that really have inspired much of my work throughout the talk this evening. She also has the honor of being Kara McLean's mom, so many of you remember Kara. This is the famous Donna. All right. Let's see, I have to do things here. This is the garden at Children First, and the children are picking green beans. And as they are picking, they notice a pile of seeds. And I don't know if you can see them, they're sort of hidden here. And they are wondering where the seeds came from. Sarah, is the other teacher at Children First, is asking them to predict, where do you think they might come from? And she doesn't provide answers, instead she asks really good open-ended questions that prompt their reasoning. It was a beautiful example of inquiry when the children who see Justice, and you're gonna meet him over and over tonight, is underneath the flower trying to understand where these seeds may have dropped from. They can't see the sunflower because it has fallen over. And so she helps them, guides them gently to find it. And then they draw the connection between the flower, you see he's looking at the seeds, and the seeds that have fallen. So another great example of inquiry here. I call this slide Research is Fun. This was an undergraduate research grant. It fostered a mentoring relationship between myself and Caroline and Cindy and any students we've been bringing along many years now. And I wanted to highlight that my work as teacher, scholar, and mentor is very connected, and that I couldn't do anything that I'm going to tell you about tonight without my students. So I want to thank my undergraduate collaborators. I'll mention them periodically along the way, but without them, I couldn't do it. All right, it's cold, it's rainy, the world is falling apart. Let's experience the world through the eyes of a preschooler for a moment, and we're going to take a walk in the woods.
I found a mushroom here, guys. Oh, you guys, I found a mushroom.
A mushroom?
Yes, right here, in the middle of the path.
Oh, it does look high, man.
And I found a marshmallow.
You found a marshmallow?
No, I found a mushroom. Yeah, a mushroom. Come on. What is in it? It's in the middle of the path. See?
Well, it really is in the middle of the path.
I found
Oh, Gwen, thanks for taking a picture of that.
My mom and dad.
Thanks for taking a picture of that. Is actually a complicated pedagogy by which children and teachers photo document everything that they're doing. These pictures go into these large portfolios. This is part of the Reggio Emilia-inspired pedagogy that Donna and Sarah are using. And here, Donna has 5 children that she does this weekly. They're at the Eno River, and they're gonna follow a little trail. We're gonna follow with them here for one more minute. This, by the way, was the first 5 minutes of Kara's honors thesis, and we watched this over and over, trying to figure out what will we do with all of this data she filmed for an entire year, and we were so excited, and the first 5 minutes generated so many questions, and I'm gonna ask you to think about what are you noticing in these first 2 clips. Here we have Kai in the orange shirt. Kai has watched 2 of his peers jump to the rocks in the river, and one has waded through, and Kai has announced to the group, I don't want to get wet. So we're going to watch and see what happens with Kai.
Wow, we're brave, aren't we? I love to go to Monday. It's not brave or not. It's not like
You can't quite reach it with your hand, Kai.
I got it.
Hey Kai, this would be the time when I get sort of in a place like that where I feel a little stuck about jumping over. I sometimes ask for someone to come back and just hold out a hand for me.
Katie, can you come back and hold on hand for me?
Tara and I both do that actually. Josh helps us a lot. Hey, thank you, Casey.
Okay, so then hold on it. Katie, don't pull on my hand. I got a picture!
You just need Casey to hold still and steady. Fine, good. It worked.
Hey, we both think it wet, right? Oh, that's my marshmallow. Okay. I made my marshmallow! You can have mine. We're gonna go get our marshmallow.
Okay, this is probably the only pair share we'll do tonight, but take 30 seconds if you would and just turn to the person beside you. What do you notice? What do you find interesting? And if you were Kara or me, what might you decide to study from these interactions that you've just witnessed? So very quickly, what do you notice? So I just can take a quick minute. Can a couple of you share what you found interesting or what you noticed? Isa? Kai.
Yeah, Kai, he's trying to figure out how to do this, and he's already seen 3 of his friends doing it, but I think what's different is that he was afraid of getting wet.
Great.
So, by being afraid of getting wet, he probably didn't feel comfortable doing whatever the other 3 kids did.
Great. So you can look at comfort in the environment. Certainly, the other children you saw, don't pull me too hard, Casey, right? So there's individual differences, we call that in psychology, when children have different responses. Anybody else? Quickly? Yes. Thanks. Great. Yeah, it's such a Donna thing. She offers a strategy. She doesn't tell him what to do. She just, here's what Kara and I sometimes do, and he immediately adopts it, and Casey immediately helps, and so it works really nicely. Cindy told you a lot about my research paradigm. It can be characterized by studying children in the midst of their daily activities. Sometimes it's naturalistic observation, like this video footage has been naturalistic. We didn't change anything about what was already happening in the environment. Often when I'm studying parent guidance, we do bring in structured activities, but we are always using an observational paradigm. It's very time consuming, and you have to be a little bit crazy to do it, I think, basically. But I love it, and I find that even though we do small, detailed studies, we provide a nice complement to people who are doing large-scale surveys. Often parents say they do one thing, and you might observe other things in their behavior, for example. So I'm honored again to tell you a little bit more about what I do. I'm going to start just telling you briefly about the theoretical framework that I use to inform my work. Vygotsky was one of the original theorists here, and he emphasized the importance of understanding the individual in the social environment. So we look at ways that children participate with others. They can be adults, siblings, peers, and how those social interactions foster thinking and learning. That's Kara again, Kim Walker, credit. This is, I think, your first I Am Elon. And so you know Donna, because you went to that. So Kara here is working in a collaborative way with the children. They're at the creek behind the school, and she's pointing something out. I don't know what. I'm going to talk to you about 3 social processes that foster cognitive development briefly. The first is the zone of proximal development, or the ZPD. This is proposed by Vygotsky as a way of understanding the difference between what you can do alone, unassisted, and what you can do with some help. Here we have college students helping children in Turkey. They're planting window boxes. There's a lot of excitement in the room. These children haven't had their hands in dirt all that often, and they find a worm, and they are screaming with excitement. And the teacher goes with it. She gets a magnifying glass, and she is supporting. She has been trained in Reggio Emilia herself. So the college students are also extending their own ZPD, or their own ability, by learning how to work with children in different cultural contexts. This is a schematic of the ZPD, so you have here what you can do without assistance, what you can do with some assistance, or in the zone of proximal development, and then things that are just beyond what you can do. Of course, a couple of things matter. One is the challenge level of the task at hand, and the other would be the level of competence that you're bringing to the situation. So it requires sensitive scaffolding. Another social process is bridging, where you draw a connection between something that you already know and something that is new. I'm going to give you an example here. So this is an interaction between a mother and her child. They are playing a game where they're matching animals to the habitat. So she's asking some questions here. What do you think the saltwater fish eats? And the child says, eats the water. Mom tries again, eats the water? What do you think he eats? The child says, I don't really know. So I bet he eats other smaller fish. And the child says, ooh, that's not something comfortable to think about. Maybe he eats certain kinds of sea creatures that live on the coral reef. And the child says, coral reef, what's that? So mom creates a bridge here where she reflects back to Nemo, a film that he knows well. So remember, in Nemo, and he says, oh yeah, that thing they brush their teeth with. So the coral reef. It's a nice bridge because he gets the reference immediately, and so she helps draw the connection. Here we have Donna sitting with Lior. I love this. Lior is dictating his story to Donna, and she is writing down his story. This is beautifully showcasing the process of intersubjectivity, or a mutual focus and a shared sense of attention. It helps keep children engaged, and also you can tell how much fun they're having. They are both really have mutual regard for the task at hand. Let me ask quickly if any of you could make a guess, except Donna. What is happening, and not you either, Alexis, probably you know. What is happening in this picture? Anybody have a guess? What might be happening in this picture? Where are my students? Looking at you. No? Somebody make a guess. Isa, again, thank you.
I think it's Caroline should answer this one, because I was thinking maybe it's like a risky play situation where they're like going down. They might be like wanting to cross that log or something over the water.
Okay, maybe risky play, she's saying, which is really an interesting topic. I'm not going to have a whole lot, but I'm going to refer to your study quickly. Yeah, actually what they are doing, that's a great guess, and they could be pretending, they could be doing all kinds of things. What they are doing is mindful meditation. They practice it, I know, how cool is this? They practice this at school, they practice it on the rock when they're having snack, and I think it was Casey's idea, right, Donna? He found the tree that was sort of laying over in the water and decided this would be a great place to practice mindful meditation. So in my work, it's important to study the behaviors in context. So what is the context here? It's the natural world, and so there are many affordances here. It's quiet, you can hear birds. There's a tree that affords a nice place to rest, and so understanding the entire context is important. You can code all kinds of things here. We can think about the adult's role in setting up an environment in some cases, or here bringing children to this beautiful environment. We can think about the children's behaviors themselves. I think it's Gwen and Justice are waiting patiently for their turn till he has his 2 minutes meditating. So there's all kinds of things we could be studying here. Tonight I'll just talk about 3 areas, and actually really only 2 because I'll run out of time. Numeracy, which is defined as the functional use of math in the environment. I'll talk about inquiry learning, which I opened with. Think about that in both preschool and home contexts, and maybe say something about inquiry in higher education. My earliest work was looking at reading and play, looking at connections that parents draw for children across those 2 contexts. Lots of work has been done in the home looking at emergent literacy, and so for a while we did this paradigm. Some of the earliest researchers here, Katie King was a collaborator, and we looked at how parents guide children. Parents provide a lot of information to children. They guide their learning in all kinds of different ways, including reading and play. And children love it. They enjoy these activities with their parents, and they get to practice opportunities to read, to write letters. I'm not going to talk much more about that, though, because I'm going to shift over to math guidance. And you mentioned this, this study. This was completely by accident. I didn't study early childhood math, and I never had even thought about it. And I got a letter in the mail saying, would you please contribute a chapter to this book? Being an entrepreneurial pre-tenured professor, I thought, well, I don't know. We agonized about this for a while. Am I going to be able to find something? So I reflected back on a study we had just conducted with a working cash register. So I decided to go back and recode. Did parents help children with math? It was kind of interesting. I was surprised that they didn't. So it worked. You can see $15.95 rung up here. This is the cash register that we used. What parents did was talk about the value, the cultural value of goods. So wow, $15.95 is expensive for milk. They also warned They also warned their children about credit card debt. They did. What they didn't do was ask their child to make change or to talk about the value of the bills, 10, for example, the numbers on the bills. So that struck me as interesting. So we devised several more studies on this topic, and we adopted a paradigm where we randomly assigned half of the parents to get some instruction about how to include numeracy or support for math. So we would give them very gentle suggestions and see what they did. The other group, we did not say anything at all about guidance. And over and over, when we ask people to support numeracy, they can do it. And they do twice as much than the folks who aren't getting the instructions. So we went through this paradigm several times. Why does it matter? Math talk matters. It turns out that when adults talk about math, children also talk about math, and it enhances their achievement in math as well. Math matters also because at kindergarten, it predicts school success. It predicts both literacy and math achievement. So early home numeracy is an important area to study. Sorry. Mary Jo talked about getting dry mouth, and she gave it to me. This is a study with Caroline Pittard some years ago now. We were interested in looking at a group of children at Head Start and how their parents supported math in several different ways. So the aims of the study were first to observe the children's performance, both in a standardized situation and also with 2 activities with their parents. And we observed how parents supported math in those 2 contexts as well. The test of early mathematics assessment, or the TEMA, was administered to children. You can see here their percentile rank was in the 30th percentile, which is fairly low. And then, of course, there was a wide range. That's the significant point here, is the first to 95th percentile. So the kids were highly variable in terms of their math abilities. We asked parents to guide them in 2 different activities. One is a game that we've used. There was a picture of it on the other slide, the Ladybug game. And in the next one, it's a number concept assessment. In the Ladybug game, we asked parents to allow your child to give out the aphids. I'll tell you about the game in a moment. Basically, the ladybugs help find their way home. They have to collect aphids for some lazy ants, and they have to get by a praying mantis, and there's a lot that happens. You'll see a picture in a moment. And we really wanted to remind parents, use your turn as well to help your child count. So this is some of the guidance instructions. And then in the number assessment was more like a homework sheet that might come home from school. Ask your child to count to 10, collect 10 pennies, and see if they know how many they have, so cardinality, set counting. This is a quick example of how a parent guided a child's performance, and there's our Ladybug game. So how many aphids do you have, says the parent. The child counts. As you see here, they make an error, so they miss the number 9. And the parent says no, and then together they point to each item that's going to be counted, so that's a physical hint. We coded that. And the parent then announces, you're only missing 1 aphid to get to 10. Could have asked the question, instead does point it out. Parents responded in different ways to their children, and we categorized those responses here and collectively. Giving a physical hint, so pointing to help children count is an effective strategy. Disaffirmation without a prompt is not particularly effective because basically the parent has just said, no, that's not right. Redirecting to the question, also not particularly helpful, although the child is getting, I need to do something different. Verbal hint, counting aloud, and disaffirmation with a prompt are very helpful strategies. You see they were lower frequency. This I point out to say that there's a real opportunity for homeschool intervention here. Parents can be guided with just simple instructions about how to support and help children, again, in that zone of proximal development, how to move them forward. You can see here quickly that the TEMA is independent performance. This is just for set counting, and the set counting was from 1 to 10. So this is a skill that children really do have, and you see with some guidance from parents, their performance goes up. Of course, parents are doing things like providing hints. We noticed in this work that there was very little math and science happening in the Head Start classrooms, and I point to Heidi. I saw you come in here somewhere. Heidi Hollingsworth and I worked together several times. We offered some continuing education to teachers about how they could support math and science in the classroom, just through the activities they were already doing. You can look at books and count things. You can have children counting when they give out snack. This is a nice picture. I think this is an Italian market. The Reggio Emilia pedagogy is very big on using the environment and helping children, again, functional use of math. Eventually, we did do an intervention with teachers where we, again, talked about inquiry and how they could support inquiry. Meanwhile, back in my life, I'm now directing the honors program, so I'm not sure what year we're in. What year did Kara go to college? She was out in 14, right? She came in her first year, we started working together. We were both very excited about the options, thinking about the natural world and also about children, and that led us naturally to Children First. And I haven't said as much as I want to about this preschool, but again, there's a seamless indoor-outdoor curriculum. Children are outdoors quite a bit, and Kara, of course, we had an in, because her mom directs the preschool. And this is too complicated to really understand, but her study was very complicated. And so we had data for years. Basically, she could stop everything she's doing, come back, and we could still have lots of studies. But we won't ask her to do that because, as you'll see here, she's very busy.
Hello everyone, my name is Kara McLean. Sadly, I can't be here in person tonight, but I wanted to share a little bit about what this research has meant to me. While at Elon, I was able to undertake a 2-year honors thesis under Dr. Vandermaas-Peeler's guidance that involved a longitudinal study design with 1 year spent collecting live videos of preschoolers in a garden, at a creek, and at a local river. We were interested in studying how outdoor experiences impact preschoolers' socio-emotional, cognitive, and physical development. This project enabled us to better understand the rich and varied learning that occurs in outdoor spaces, from how features of the environment, like rocks or moving water, create opportunities for different types of play, risk-taking, and collaboration, to the ways that preschoolers generate complex scientific theories around discoveries made in wild spaces and develop mathematical thinking and reasoning skills while gardening, to young children's ability to engage in environmental stewardship and mindfulness meditation outside. Conducting this research was the highlight of my time at Elon and energized me to continue to try to ask and then try to answer meaningful and rich research questions. This research turned into several publications and a book chapter, and eventually counted as my master's thesis for my doctorate in clinical psychology at the University of Tennessee. Dr. Vandermaas-Peeler continues to be an important mentor for me today, and I'm so excited that y'all get to hear about her important research contributions tonight.
Took me several times through that not to cry every time. I'm not even kidding. Working with Kara revolutionized my research. It helped me see children in the natural world this is a really great topic, and there were so many things to study. And through her honors research, I met Donna, and I continued working with Donna and Sarah beyond Kara, so I'm delighted that we could bring her into my talk tonight. This is reflecting back to the opening slide. We're now back in the garden at Children First. This was one of the 3 contexts in which Kara filmed, as she just explained. And what we found really fascinating was the functional use of math in the environment. And also, I began to be very curious about this inquiry learning that I saw Donna and Sarah fostering. So in the top picture, I probably have a pointer. No need. They're planting seeds and measuring them, it looks like, with the shovel to kind of get the distance between them. Sarah would foster children's thinking by saying things like, how can we get these 9 plants to fit in here? Here, I love this middle picture. It's pouring rain. They've gone in, and then they've decided, no, let's just keep going. So they run back out to the garden, and Lauren is looking for potatoes. And it's hard to discover what's a potato and what's a rock. So Sarah has given them a strategy of banging the potatoes against the shovel, and if they sound like a rock, it's not the potato. And then these boys have identified a strategy. You can't pick the green bean unless it's longer than your thumb. That was the title of our paper. And here we have Sarah is showing the children how spatial orientation of plants works. So the roots go down and the plants come up to meet the sun. I loved this study so much, and it was the first thing I did in my full-pay sabbatical I'll talk about in a moment. I came back to the study and recoded because reviewers hated it. I have no idea why. I was so excited about the data, and it got no traction. And I think it's because I didn't have standardized math assessments, and I was looking at this small group of children who were clearly learning so much over the course of 9 months in the garden. It did finally find a good home at the International Journal of Early Childhood Environmental Education, and I tell you that to say stick with it, and this is a good Cindy Fair strategy as well. Maybe you can rework it. We added some things about ecological awareness to the study, and it found a good home. I'm going to show you a few short clips of an activity that Sarah used to foster both inquiry, and there's a little math that creeps in. In this first clip, she's referring back to a book that she's read with the children about potatoes and about a family that's been picking potatoes.
each, and with all the roots, do you know what they found? Potatoes. Lots and lots of potatoes. And so from little bits of...
70, 100?
I think they ended up with like 54 or 73 or something like that. We'll have to get the book out, check it out, but they definitely counted them. So each piece of potato, each potato has like little bits that are called eyes on them.
Eyes? Potatoes have eyes?
Hey, Kai, if you want to wipe your hand, brush your hands off over the deck here, you can. It's a little uncomfortable. Want to rub them together? Sure.
Rub, rub, rub,
Rub, rub, rub. Brush, brush, brush. But this is an eye. These are eyes. Can you find some on here?
Oh, I see one.
Any more?
This potato has one eye. 2 eyes. The one right there. Oh, yeah,
Now they're moving to the garden with their eyes, and they're planting them. And one child is going to offer a casual theory about ants.
Okay.
I hope the ants are much more cozy underground.
Do you think they are? Because I haven't seen ants up on top of the ground since it's been cold, huh?
Maybe
Yeah,
bugs
where
don't
they go.
like it. Well, I know that polar bears like it when it's cold. It gets really, really cold.
Who does?
Polar bears,
Polar bears, sure.
pretty much.
So his theory is, I guess bugs don't like the cold. So this comes from deep and sustained engagement in an activity over time, and he has noticed that the ants are not above ground as they usually are. This is very sophisticated thinking. This child is 4, and he has a theory now. So again, there are some theorists who maybe wouldn't give credit to children for this kind of complex thinking, but we saw it over and over again. This is our last clip in the garden, and it's about what children understand about plant life and death.
Keep it going, keep it going.
So, until we gotta dig it for a long time until it gets to the top.
Until it makes a mound again. Keep mounding. I'll be right back.
Oh, mound, and oh, mound, and I'll get that quack onto a pound. Now get that quack onto a pound. Now make a little hill, and the hill's name Bill, and the hill's name. And I'll dig it up and slap it up and slap, slap, go. Dig out that hat.
Don't worry about patting it, because it's actually kind of good if the soil stays a little loose all around, so the roots can do their job of moving.
The roots never move.
It's hard to see roots move.
But the plant moves.
You've seen it?
Yeah, I've seen a plant move. Sunflowers move when they die.
When you, yeah,
They could do this.
they droop their heads down. You really have seen that, haven't you, Justice?
Yeah, me too.
When have you seen a plant move, Kai?
Let's see what this is.
Remember seeing a plant move?
Yeah, I saw my sunflowers go down when they
They're
die.
drooping down.
Oh yeah, I found another rock.
You can go back with the other rocks.
Okay.
All right, Justice and Kai, this is, I think pull this
I
part up.
found a wormy.
Hi, worm.
You can really see him down
I can see the sun shining on it.
Don't you see why I love this study so much? So I began to wonder, as I watched children in the garden at Children First, what would happen if we asked parents to support inquiry learning? Let's refer back briefly to the inquiry processes that we'll be talking about, and then I'll tell you about a study where we tried it. So observing, questioning, predicting, evaluating, and concluding are some of, and comparing, are some of the processes that children are, you've seen them doing some of this. Some of them are more difficult. Now, children are already doing a lot of observing and questioning, and sometimes you can get them to make predictions. Evaluating the predictions is a more sophisticated step along the process, and drawing conclusions would be, again, thinking about the scientific method. Guidance techniques that support this would be things like saying, I notice, and I wonder, and you've heard some of this. Why? How do you know? Why, again, why inquiry? Why am I so hung up on this? Why does it matter? When children use these processes, they learn to ask questions, but also to find the answers themselves. And that leads them to more advanced questions. and we could all use a world where people use evidence to answer questions. We need everyone to go to Children First. I love this picture. I think I've forgotten to tell you about all the pictures in the slides, my enthusiasm here, but this is a great picture where the girls have built one of Alexis's daughters, I believe. Isn't that Hannah? Is Chloe? They're hard to tell apart. So they've built a wood sculpture. So Donna has made materials available, and they figuring out which things you can glue together, and so really good practice constructing models. And now they're mixing paints to color them. So sometimes supporting inquiry is putting the right materials in the environment, and sometimes it's asking a question, and sometimes it's getting out of the way and letting children explore. I went to look at what do we know about parent guidance of inquiry and found almost nothing. So people have not been looking at this in the home very often. I haven't found anybody yet who's looked at it in the home, except us. But in museums, there is some work looking at parent guidance. And so with two Elon College fellows, we did a study at the Museum of Life and Science. Some of you, anybody recognize this exhibit there? It's called Size It Up. It's upstairs, and it was right by the music. There's some loud exhibit right beside it. And parents, it turns out, are not super excited about joining you in a study of parent guidance at the museum when they brought their preschoolers. We had a really hard time recruiting families. But they worked together, we got it done, and we used a similar paradigm that I've been talking about where we randomly assigned some parents to an instruction group. We found out from the staff that parents rarely read posted signs, in their opinion. Just curious, how many of you walk through museums and read posted signs? We were sort of surprised to hear it, but then you think, okay, but you're there with a preschooler. So we created a more elaborate set of instructions for families, and we reminded the control group that they could read the posted signs, but the instruction group, we gave a little bit more detail. And when we did that, we found that their conversations were much more complex. Children were using more complex reasoning to questions like, how do you know? And this is a little bit, it's a hard skill for preschool. Children were actually 4 and 5, and maybe even 6. Conservation that was a challenging construct to try to measure. So they needed their parents' help, and indeed, it did seem to support more sophisticated thinking. So, back to my life. I have been awarded the full pay sabbatical, which was a life-changing opportunity for me. I'll say thanks about that later. And I conducted 3 different studies that year. One was the study of parent guidance that I'll tell you about, and the second one was with Heidi, looking at Head Start teachers and helping them understand ways that they could implement inquiry guidance in with the resources that they had. And the third was filming at Children First, so that they allowed me to come back. So Tuesdays were my day to go hang out, and then it was completely naturalistic observation. And I filmed the kids. One child, who I won't name, but she's amazing, was very curious about why I wasn't going to talk to them, why I wasn't going to get involved. So she started calling me Photo Girl. And she would be so busy in her day, and the kids never paid attention to me after Donna gave me a good strategy of having a clipboard, so I just pretended to look busy if they were going to engage me. And she would run by in the middle of all her stuff and say, "Hey, Photo!" She knew I was there. She just kept going with her life. So, this was the study of parents that I want to tell you about. Same design. I know you're getting bored with it by now, but randomly assigned one group of parents to an inquiry guidance instruction group. And we actually created a video of times at Children First that we'd seen some nice inquiry guidance, and we gave them a handout. And so we said, here's some things you can do to support children's learning in this way. So that way is, as you've been hearing, open-ended guidance, privileging questions rather than answers. I have noticed in the couple of decades I've been studying parent guidance that parents are very tempted to tell children the answers. So there's a lot of didactic work, or teaching guidance, I have called it. So we didn't say anything about guidance to the control group, and everybody did basically the same things, but we did have this one set of instructions for the inquiry group. There were 30 parents with 4- and 5-year-old children. It was a very complicated study. We built everything into this study. We've been taking years to analyze it. When you're going to get this kind of data, you try to get as much as you can. So the families really were delightful, and some of you may have even been in the study, to do all of these things with us. So we came on an initial visit, and we did some games. We had an assessment of children's literacy and math. We didn't want to clue them in that we were looking at math, so we also built literacy into the assessment, so that's our pretest. We did a demographic survey, and we left them with materials to do activities over the next 4 weeks. And we asked them, please do 2 activities a week, and at least one, could you audio record it for us? And families did whatever they wanted, basically. So we suggested cooking, games, and nature activities, and sometimes they did that. Understandably, right? You're working with your family, and siblings were involved, animals were involved. It was a complicated mess, but it's been a good mess. And the measures at the final test included physical games and iPad games with the similar constructs. I haven't even analyzed that yet. And then assessments, again, the post-test. And then we asked parents to talk about how that was to use inquiry guidance. And also, you'll see how the children felt about it. How am I doing on time? I'm going to wrap up quickly. So I think since it's already almost 7:15, I won't show you, but Dana Irons has so kindly allowed us to. So she's supporting inquiry here with Caleb, and they're trying to find, match an animal print to the pictures, and they have a book, a resource book. So this was at the pretest, the first interview. We have some pictures here of other families engaged in the task. So they're measuring their feet so that they can use them as a measuring tool. Here you see they're measuring the cat. We didn't ask them to do that, but what the heck, that's fun. Here we have another colleague who's in London. She agreed to let me use this, so Nina is working with her son, and they're doing parts of a whole. This is a pizza fraction game, and a similar construct at the iPad. So I'm going to go through these relatively quickly so we have time for Q&A, but one thing we were interested in, of course, and this is the audio recorded data. We also had video recordings from the home visits, and the audio data yielded 2,251 minutes of data, and 850 exchanges that we were really interested in. So again, so much credit to my students. Lauren Westerberg waded through this data. We learned to use deduce. Deduce produces normalized percentages for you, which is what we're looking at here, because there were different amounts of time on each activity. Parents did some different things. There were siblings involved. It was a mess. So we have normalized percentages. And you can see there's not a lot of difference at the left side when you're talking about supporting observing and questioning. Identifying and classifying came out of some of the activities. Not a lot of difference, but the blue is the inquiry group, and we see that they're doing a lot more of the more sophisticated side of inquiry guidance, and they're doing almost twice as much, in fact, asking children to make predictions, evaluate those predictions, and draw conclusions. Here is by type of activity. We can see that activities themselves are important context because they demand certain kinds of things. So identifying numbers comes out of games, which is blue. Nature is in green, and we see, of course, lots of classification happening in nature activities. Cooking is very interesting for comparing. They were often looking at salt and sugar and trying to decide what the differences were. And then math. So we found parents were supporting math. As opposed to the earliest work I told you about, we saw a lot more support of math. Perhaps we clued parents in that it was a math study. Possibly STEM has gained greater consciousness right now. So people were really doing the math that was supported in the activity. Again, you see measurement. The red bar is cooking. So lots of math being supported. Some of these were low frequency, but we did see them. Addition, subtraction, spatial orientation. How consistent were parents, and how much did they really use this inquiry guidance? So we went back and coded every activity again, and we decided to see, is it high on teaching, medium, and low, and what about on inquiry? So the control group, overall, we didn't say anything to them. They were very high on teaching guidance, as we had expected from our previous work. Inquiry group did a different pattern. They had 35% of them were rated, okay, we're trying inquiry and we're low on teaching, but a bunch of them did both. They did inquiry and teaching guidance, and maybe that was a much more comfortable style. How comfortable was it? One parent says, I just had to let her, take her time to answer, and you wouldn't want to do it all the time. Indeed, if you're a parent in a hurry, it's no time to have inquiry guidance, right? This is funny, this is sometimes how children responded. Her father is playing a game with her, and he's doing a lot of I wonder what makes ponds green. What do you think? I wonder. She says, Daddy, I don't want you to say I wonder anymore. And the mom says, it's a script, don't you? This child also became very frustrated when no one would tell her the answer, so she was asking the researchers, excuse me, do you have a duck's foot? Is this the duck's foot? And they also weren't telling her, so she just made up the rules. these findings have implications, of course, for really privileging questions over answers. And I think with short-term interventions, we can see parents doing some of that. It's maybe not a natural thing at first, but encouraging that, and also relationships between home and school, very important. I love this quote, thanks to Donna again. This is Carla Rinaldi, and she basically is saying, we don't have to teach children how to ask questions. They're already doing it. But I love this on the right. So observe and listen to children, because when they ask why, they're not simply looking for an answer from you. They're requesting the courage to find a collection of possible answers, yet it is possible to destroy this attitude of the child with our quick answers and our certainty. And I think this, again, is sort of the message of inquiry. There's a lot of ongoing work. These are some of the student projects that we've had. Sheena's in the room. Where are you, Sheena? She's looking at storytelling, which we love. We love this project. Lauren and Jackie have graduated. Risky Play, Caroline Dean is in the house, and she has done a study looking at Guatemalan parents and U.S.-born parents in her hometown of Morganton. And Isabel Blanco Araujo is just beginning her study of Venezuelan adolescents and parents' reflections on play in a very difficult sociopolitical context. I studied this too, and we don't have time to talk about it. This has been a great project. Jesse Moore invited Paul and myself to become part of this project, and this book has just been published. It's a culmination. So thinking again about inquiry in higher education. Lastly, global engagement. Matt Buckmaster and I, and Olivia Chopin, and Amanda Sturgill, and Nina, and Kirsty Doler are all involved in a grant that the Colonial Academic Alliance gave us. And we are studying global engagement in terms of what students are saying about as they come back to campus from their study away experience. So we just have started this work, but this participant gave us this nice quote. And I am done. Thank you. Grazie, mahalo. Let me quickly say my thanks to the participating families and teachers. Could not have done it without you, especially to Donna and Sarah. Just give Donna a hand. My remarkable undergraduate mentees, again, could not do it. The colleagues, the support of the administration is amazing and has fostered, so many of us in the room have been doing scholarship we couldn't be doing without this kind of support. Faculty R&D, Tim Peoples, a staunch supporter. Again, I'd love to give Tim a hand for all he does. Michael Vaughn helped me learn how to do a PowerPoint. That was huge. And the unwavering support of family and friends, my kids, of course, and my partner for life, who's here, Russ. That's boring, so I'm going to move you on to the 100 Languages. This is a poem that the creator of the Reggio Emilia movement wrote about children and how they learn in different ways. So I'll leave you with that, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.